today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the DC Collectibles, DC Comics Essentials Swamp Thing. Spot picked this up from his local comic book store, and as soon as I saw him, big fan of Swamp Thing, so I definitely wanted to add this to my collection. It does have a warning: choking hazard, small parts not for children under 3 years of age, although it doesn't look like Swamp Thing really comes with any sort of accessories to speak of. But one good thing about the DC Collectibles line is that there's a nice open window, so if you ever want to just keep Swamp Thing sealed, you can still get a full view of what the figure's going to look like. Side of the package features a very simplistic silhouette image of Swamp Thing, it from the DC Comics Essentials line. And then the back of the package. The other figures available in the Essentials line consist of Captain Marvel or Shazam, Green Arrow, Cyborg, Batgirl, Aquaman, Deathstroke, Flash, Supergirl, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman, the Skinned Joker, Harley Quinn, and Nightwing. You can collect them all. Essentially, Essentials are basically just re-releases of some of the figures that maybe you didn't get a chance to pick up before, like the new 52 Superman, which is still one of my favorite. There's a lot of new 52 ones there. The new 52 Joker, Wonder Woman again making a reappearance. So, like, if you didn't get a chance to get these figures before, you can kind of go back and get them again. And I think that Harley Quinn is from Suicide Squad, the original Suicide Squad release. Not a fan of that one particularly, but needless to say. Spot's going to take a break, get this big boy out of his box, and when we come back, we're going to get a better look at the DC Comics Essentials Swamp Thing. There's more heading away, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Getting a better look at Swamp Thing, I gotta admit, I'm a little disappointed. I feel like there could have been a little bit more done to him. I mean, at the end of the day, he's not a bad-looking figure, but I feel like he just isn't as cool as he could have been. It's a shame also he doesn't come with any sort of accessories. Not that Swamp Thing really deserves accessories, but I feel like for something he could have come with a display stand or something. I know that DC Collectibles doesn't really give too much in the way of accessories for figures like this. I mean, he's a towering figure to start off with, but I just feel like there's not really a lot to be said for this figure. Funny enough, the only color on him that isn't a dark green or a regular green color is the coloring in his eyes and this little tiny pink flower that's on the back of his calf here. The figure kind of looks like it's a combination of wood, as you can see, like the rings of the wood here on his legs. But then he has areas that are a little bit more of a mossy. He comes across more of a woodish, like wood-comprised creature rather than a moss creature. Sure, yes, there are areas more mossy in the arms and the lower legs and in the feet, but the areas such as his thighs and his arms, especially the arms here, do come across more wood than anything else. His face isn't bad. Let's bring the camera in and have a look at his face. His face isn't bad. It's Swamp Thing-esque. But I'm not 100% wowed by the figure either. I think the hard-pressing thing about this release of Swamp Thing is that I already have the Mattel DC Universe Swamp Thing, which was a spectacular figure, very tall. Of course, it was made of the rubber body, which I wasn't crazy about. But I think comparing the Marvel Universe, the DC Universe Swamp Thing, to this release, I feel like this one just doesn't live up to the awesomeness that DC Universe Swamp Thing possessed. And one of these days I want to do a throwback of that very same Swamp Thing. I just feel like there should have been a little bit more to break up this figure. Understanding, yes, that Swamp Thing is comprised of a green body, and they did their best to kind of break it up a little bit with the darker wash. I don't know, it just comes across a little drabby to me. Like if they had only popped it a little bit more with maybe some lighter greens or maybe some stark black in the area crevices here to just kind of make that green pop. The darker green blends too much, I think, with the normal green. Then it just gives him a very muddy look. He's got a couple of extensions out from his arms, these little twig branches coming out from his arms, which give him a little extra something, but I wish some of this could have been incorporated to some of the front of him, because the front of him is very neutral, just sculpt that for, you know, a plant-based creature. You know, wish Swamp Thing could have had some of this sticking out, you know, areas around the collar or maybe areas around the leg, something. The very predominant thing that you probably noticed too is the ball joints that sit the legs into the sockets of the lower torso. They haven't really hit it very well, and I guess because they wanted to incorporate as much leg articulation as you could, that they didn't want to, you know, obstruct that at all by sculpt, but it does make it a little noticeable, unfortunately. As Spot had alluded, he is tall. I'm just going to get him to stand properly here. The only figure I really have at my desk right now is the new Multiverse Green Arrow, and that's a standard size figure, give or take. You can see how much taller Swamp Thing is. Price point on Swamp Thing also is a little bit more. He's about $10 to $15 more than a regular DC Universe, or for that matter, a DC Collectibles figure. So because he is part of that more deluxe line, you're paying a little bit more for him as a result. Speaking strictly from a big fan of Swamp Thing, again, I'm a little disappointed how this guy turned out. For your posability options, Swamp Thing does have a ball joint in the head, but it's really stiff. Like, you can't move it very well at all. It does move up a little bit, moves down a little bit, but it's really a stiff feat to get this guy's head to move. Shoulders hinge out, and I guess they were kind of going with kind of like a toadstool kind of sticking out of his shoulder. I kind of wish that had been painted a little bit differently, because ultimately it kind of looks like he's got like superhero shoulder pads. The arms also do rotate all the way around, but very limited, because a lot of this will just start rubbing up against itself. The bicep does swivel, I'll give it that. He has a single hinged elbow. There's a rotation in his hand, I'll give it that. He has no posability at all, no crunch in his torso, no waist swivel, likely because they didn't want to break up the sculpt, which is again a little on the boring side, the sculpt on his torso. Legs, as we've already discussed, move forward and back and move out considerably. I feel like they almost didn't even need to go out as much as they did. He's got a double hinge knee, that's good, I like that. And he's got a hinge in the foot, which also pivots, let's also not forget that. End of the day, to be honest, I'm not crazy about the figure. I thought I would love it a lot more than I did. I thought, even looking at it in the packaging in the store, I thought, okay, I'm a little iffy on it, but you know what? Getting him out of packaging, I might actually be more in love with it than what I am. I think maybe he'll grow on me, no pun intended by Spot here. But I think in the meantime, the DC Universe Swamp Thing is a far greater figure. Some color, I think, could have broken up the very neutral, very blandness of this one consistent green. Understanding, yes, they did put a darker wash in it, but I feel like there just really isn't enough to make this guy pop for me. Today's Toy Spot, we were having a look at the DC Collectibles, DC Comics Essentials Swamp Thing. An okay figure. If you like Swamp Thing, maybe you might want to pick this guy up. Otherwise, I would say he's probably a pass. Certainly stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more Toy Spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching, as you always do. I'll see you next time.